Welcome back to Movies Explained. Today's film is a drama from 1994 titled Shawshank Redemption. The film opens in a dimly lit courtroom. We meet Andy Dufresne, a young successful banker, who is being accused of murdering his wife and her lover. The prosecutor presents a compelling case against Andy, describing the crime scene and the circumstances surrounding the double murder. Andy maintains his innocence throughout the trial. When asked to testify, he calmly states that he was at the scene of the crime but did not commit the murders. Despite his protestations, the jury finds him guilty, and he is sentenced to 2 consecutive life terms at Shawshank State Penitentiary. Andy arrives at the prison in a bus full of new inmates. As the bus pulls up to the imposing stone walls of Shawshank, we see an intimidating figure, Warden Samuel Norton, a stern man with a strict demeanor. Alongside him is Captain Byron Hadley, the equally ruthless head of the prison guards. The new inmates, including Andy, are lined up and given a speech by Warden Norton. He emphasizes his belief in discipline and the Bible, indicating that he runs a strict institution. After the speech, the inmates are taken inside the prison, stripped, and deloused in a humiliating and dehumanizing process. Andy is assigned his cell and introduced to his cellmate, an old lifer named Brooks Hatlin. The first night at Shawshank proves to be difficult for Andy and the other new inmates. The guards and other prisoners harass and intimidate them. A particularly sadistic guard, Dickens, bets on which new inmate will break down first, referring to it as the fresh fish game. One of the new inmates starts crying and begs to be let out. Despite the protests of Andy and others, Captain Hadley beats him severely, ultimately leading to his death. Over the next few weeks, Andy tries to adjust to his new life in prison. He remains quiet and introverted, keeping to himself and observing the dynamics of Shawshank. One day, he approaches a group of inmates led by Ellis Redding, whom the inmates call Red, a man known for his ability to obtain contraband items for the prisoners. Andy asks Red to get him a rock hammer, explaining that he wants to pursue his hobby of rock collecting and carving. Red agrees, suspicious of Andy's intentions. While working on the rooftop tarring detail, Andy overhears a conversation between Captain Hadley and another guard about a potential inheritance. Sensing an opportunity, he approaches Hadley with a proposition. He offers to help Hadley keep the inheritance tax-free in exchange for some beers for his fellow inmates who work on the roof tarring detail. Hadley agrees, and Andy's reputation among the inmates begins to grow. Andy's intelligence and financial knowledge become apparent to Warden Norton, and he is transferred from the laundry to work in the prison library under the supervision of Brooks Hatlin. Over time, Andy and Red develop a close friendship. Red is impressed by Andy's determination and spirit, and Andy appreciates Red's wisdom and experience. In one of their conversations, Andy shares his dream of living a simple life in Zihuatanejo, a small town on the Pacific coast of Mexico. He also mentions that he had written a letter to the state senate requesting funds to improve the prison library. Red is sympathetic but has doubts about Andy's hopes and the likelihood of getting any money. One day, a package arrives at Shawshank. To everyone's surprise, it contains a donation of books and a check for $200 from the state senate in response to Andy's letters. He is overjoyed and immediately starts working on expanding and organizing the library, with the help of Brooks. Meanwhile, Andy's financial expertise becomes invaluable to Warden Norton, who starts a scheme called the Inside Out program. Under this program, prison labor is used for public works projects, and in return, the state pays the prison for the labor. However, Norton exploits the program for his personal gain, siphoning off the funds into his own accounts. He enlists Andy's help in setting up a series of fake accounts and laundering the money, making him indispensable to the warden. A new inmate, Tommy Williams, arrives at Shawshank. He is a young, charismatic man with a history of petty crime. Andy and Tommy strike up a friendship, and Andy helps him study for his GED. One day, Tommy reveals to Andy and Red that he had previously shared a cell with a man named Elmo Blatch, who bragged about killing a banker's wife and her lover in a crime that sounded identical to the one Andy was convicted of. Andy, filled with hope, brings this new information to Warden Norton, believing it could be the key to proving his innocence. However, Norton refuses to investigate the claim, fearing that Andy's release would expose his own corrupt dealings. Andy is devastated and begins to lose hope. Meanwhile, Tommy passes his GED, and the group celebrates his achievement. Unbeknownst to them, Warden Norton and Captain Hadley have been watching their celebration. The warden orders Tommy to be killed under the guise of an escape attempt, ensuring that Andy's hope for exoneration is crushed. Following Tommy's death, Andy becomes despondent and withdrawn. He is placed in solitary confinement, known as the Hole, for a month as punishment for arguing with Warden Norton. Upon his release from solitary, Andy confides in Red, hinting that he may have hidden a secret stash outside the prison. However, he remains cryptic and refuses to reveal more details. As the years pass, Andy continues his work in the library, transforming it into a valuable resource for the inmates. He also starts an informal program to help inmates earn their high school diplomas. His positive impact on the lives of his fellow prisoners becomes increasingly apparent, making him a source of inspiration and hope. One day, Brooks receives news that he has been granted parole after 50 years in Shawshank. However, instead of being overjoyed, he is terrified of the prospect of life outside prison. His fear leads him to contemplate violence against another inmate, hoping it would cancel his parole. However, after talking to Andy and Red, Brooks decides against it. Upon his release, Brooks struggles to adapt to the outside world. He finds work at a grocery store and lives in a halfway house, but he is unable to shake the loneliness and alienation he feels. In a heartbreaking scene, Brooks carves "Brooks was here" into the wooden beam of his room before taking his own life. Andy, increasingly disillusioned with the corruption and injustice at Shawshank, begins to secretly plan his escape. He continues his financial dealings for Warden Norton, using the fake accounts to hide the money trail. However, he also starts to create a new identity under the name Randall Stevens, preparing a way to access the laundered money once he escapes. At the same time, Andy's rock hammer, which Red had procured for him years earlier, becomes instrumental in his escape plan. Over the years, Andy has been patiently and meticulously digging a tunnel through the wall of his cell, hidden behind a poster of various actresses including Rita Hayworth and Raquel Welch. One day, Andy manages to get his hands on a record of Mozart's The Marriage of Figaro. During regular daytime hours, he locks himself in the warden's office and plays the record over the prison's PA system. Although he is punished with another stint in solitary confinement, the experience brings a sense of beauty and hope to the prisoners, further solidifying Andy's impact on their lives. After being released from solitary confinement, Andy tells Red about his dream of living in Zihuatanejo and restoring an old boat. He asks Red, if he ever gets out, to find a specific rock wall in a hayfield near Buxton, Maine, and look for a rock that has no earthly business in a Maine hayfield. Red is skeptical, but he promises to do it if he ever gets the chance. The next day, during a routine cell inspection, the guards discover Andy's absence. They find the tunnel he has dug and realize that he escaped during the storm the previous night. Andy had crawled through the tunnel and used the sewer line to exit the prison grounds, making his way to freedom. Andy's escape sends shockwaves through the prison, leaving Warden Norton and Captain Hadley to face the consequences of their actions. Meanwhile, Red begins to contemplate the possibility of his own redemption and the promise he made to his friend. The bond between Andy and Red continues to shape the story as both men strive for hope and freedom in their own ways. Following his daring escape, Andy wastes no time enacting his revenge on Warden Norton and Captain Hadley. Using the false identity he created as Randall Stevens, Andy visits multiple banks and withdraws the laundered money that had been accumulated through the Inside Out program. He also mails evidence of Warden Norton's corruption and Captain Hadley's brutal crimes to a local newspaper. The fallout is swift and devastating. Captain Hadley is arrested, and Warden Norton, realizing that his actions have finally caught up to him, takes his own life in his office to avoid facing the consequences. Back at Shawshank, Red faces another parole hearing. Unlike his previous hearings, Red speaks honestly and without pretense about his remorse and the meaning of rehabilitation. Surprisingly, Red is granted parole after 40 years in prison. Fulfilling his promise to Andy, Red travels to the hayfield near Buxton, Maine, and locates the rock wall Andy had described. He finds a small box containing a letter from Andy and some cash. In the letter, Andy reveals that he has made his way to Zihuatanejo, Mexico, and he invites Red to join him there. Despite being on parole and risking a return to prison, Red decides to follow Andy's instructions. He purchases a bus ticket to Fort Hancock, Texas, where he crosses the border into Mexico. Throughout his journey, Red narrates his thoughts and feelings, reflecting on the power of hope and the importance of friendship. Finally, Red arrives in Zihuatanejo and finds Andy working on his boat on the beach. The two friends are reunited, sharing a warm and emotional embrace. Their bond, forged through shared experiences and the power of hope, has brought them both to a place of freedom and redemption. The film concludes with a beautiful aerial shot of Andy and Red working together on the boat, signifying the beginning of their new lives and the fulfillment of their dreams. Shawshank Redemption showcases the power of friendship, hope, and redemption. The journey of Andy and Red, two men from vastly different backgrounds, demonstrates that even in the darkest of places, the human spirit can find a way to prevail. Thanks for watching, like and subscribe for more videos.